Hi everyone, you're welcome to the Tech Tuesdays webinar on EDC New Feature Data Asset Analytics. I'm Brinda and I'll be hosting today's webinar. Today's presenter is Srinivas Pai from Global Customer Support Team working with Informatica as Lead Technical Support Engineer for MDM Multi-Domain. Before we start this webinar, here are some housekeeping tips. This webinar will be for 1 hour. That includes a 45 minutes webcast, and then we will roll over to live for 15 minutes to answer your queries. You can post your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll try and answer them. All dial-in participants will be muted so that the presenter can present without any kind of interruptions. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be available in the Informatica Support YouTube channel and the Success Portal. The link will be emailed to you as well. You can also put in your feedback and suggestions for the upcoming topics for Tech Tuesday webinars in the survey that follows. The Tech Tuesday webinars is a webinar series introduced within the Success Portal. The Informatica Success Portal is a micro-learning platform that offers free and unlimited learning to all registered users. The Success Portal will show up your customer success manager information, your success offerings, your books available in the Ask an Expert session, and customized recommendations and content. Here are a few important links that you can go over later that will help you understand Informatica products better and help you in your product adoption journey. Handing over to you, Srini. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, wherever you are. Hope you are doing safe and great. Thank you all for taking your time to attend this session on Data Asset Analytics, or DAA. The agenda of today's session would be as below. I will begin with an overview on Data Asset Analytics, or DAA. The next topic would be installation, configuration, and administration part of Data Asset Analytics. I'll follow it up with the high-level overview on the functionality that would be the charts, dashboards, and reports features of DAA. The next topic would be a quick demo on the DAA web UI. I have compiled a list of FAQs and troubleshooting questionnaires that we have been getting from the customer's end from their various implementations, which I will share with you. Then we will end the session with Q&A from your end. Moving on to the next slide. Data Asset Analytics is an industry-first metadata analytics solution which helps you to optimize data asset value with analytics on data asset inventory, usage, enrichment, and user collaboration of your data catalog. Data Asset Analytics provides you extensive reporting and analytics dashboard capabilities, which helps you in real-time storytelling for empowering custom insights on the cataloged data. There are two major components of Data Asset Analytics: report types and dashboards. Data Asset Analytics provides you predefined report types that you can generate on your existing data sets. Data Asset Analytics provides 11 predefined report types where you can run it on your existing data set and preview and download the events on your historical data. These report runs could be accessed directly from any BI tools. Data Asset Analytics also provides you around 25 out-of-the-box dashboards and metrics on user adoption, data asset inventory, data asset enrichments, user collaboration, and data value. I'll explain each of these components further down in my upcoming slides. Data asset analytics helps a customer to understand the understand the visibility of the data asset usage, inventory, enrichment, collaboration, and data value. It helps you to track the key metrics on your catalog data, help you to monitor the activities, uncover patterns, spot the trends, also capture the misuse, and thereby improving the data value. From a very high level overview, for somebody who is a CDO or somebody who is owning the uh, who is leading the ID team and owning the data asset, it helps the business to answer some very basic functionality like who is using this, who is using your catalog data, what is the catalog adoption rate from the data assets, what are the top searches, what are the average searches per user, which catalog data or asset or module is most accessed, how is the data governance going on on the particular data, what is the percentage of objects with lineage, owners, description, subject matter experts, business terms assigned to it, etc. Who are the top contributors and the subject matters that has been inferred from the various collaboration activities on the data asset, and which user groups or data sets are being accessed a lot and hence would need more information, which are the sensitive data sources, who modifies these or scans these sensitive data sources, and also it helps you to understand how what is the value of your catalog data, and how the value how you can see the growth in the value of this catalog data. With a brief introduction on what data asset analytics does, I will move on to the next slide, which is a very high level architecture on uh, data asset analytics associated with the catalog service. So in this particular diagram, you can check the high level architecture on data asset analytics along with the existing catalog service architecture. We see the data asset analytics metadata is actually stored on a relational database. All the events that are generated from your catalog service is stored into the data asset analytics repository database. For the current version, the supported version of databases are Oracle, SQL Server, and PostgreSQL. Uh, the events that are captured in the data asset analytics database are then using the REST APIs are accessed from the via the data DAA web app as reports and dashboards. Moving on to the next slide, how does a customer install data asset analytics on their existing configuration? For an existing customer who is on 10.4.1, when they 10.4.0, when they upgrade to 10.4.1, the diagram that we show here is actually explains how can a user configure data asset analytics as a part of his upgrade path. So when a user upgrades the services from 10.4 to 10.4.1, the first step would be to apply 10.4.1 on your existing instance. Data asset analytics is an optional service, and it does not actually impact your catalog service performance. So once you upgrade your services to 10.4.1 on the admin console, the user can enable the data asset analytics by providing the data asset analytics configuration details. The configuration details will actually involve the database details where you would want to configure the data asset analytics service. Once the configuration is done, you would need to assign the privileges. to the users as it is required. I'll discuss about the database privileges and the service level privileges that are required for a user in my upcoming slides. Once from the admin console for the catalog service option, once the service level configuration for DA is done, the user must be setting the below custom property LDM custom options dot ingest dot store dot events dot on dot reindex dot bool. You have to set it to true, and then you would need to reindex the catalog service so that the data from your user catalog is reindexed and copied or transferred into the DAA database. Once the DAA database has the required information from the data catalog, the user can then log in into the LDM catalog UI and then access the service. Uh, uh, access the DAA web UI to view the catalog insights related to user adoption, asset inventory, enrichments, collaboration, and data value. Any additions that have been done after the DAA is configured on the catalog service will automatically get captured on DA. So any updates on the catalog service, any scans, any enrichments, any collaboration gets immediately captured on the DA on the runtime, and any reindex will not be required. Moving on to the next slide. For a new customer who are configuring the services on 10.4.1 directly, you would just need to configure when you create a new catalog service, an optional screen for DAA would appear where you provide the database configuration details, which would that you are using for DAA. Once that is provided, you can enable the DAs. You can enable the catalog service, which enables DAA. Further, you can assign the privileges as required. Post that, you would need to perform your scan your resources and perform enrichments and collaborations as required. Post then, you can log in into the DAA web app and view your analytics. Because your catalog service is configured fresh in 10.4.1 along with DAA, there is no requirement of setting any custom properties or a reindex that was actually required in your upgrade scenarios. Moving on to the next slide. These are the configuration parameters that I was discussing in my earlier slides related to data asset analytics. So we can see the list of options that is provided from the database level on the current version of catalog 10.4 version of catalog service. The available options are Oracle, PostgreSQL, and SQL Server. You would need to provide the database connect string to connect to the respective database, and the connectivity from the application to the database is via JDBC. Moving on to the next slide. From the administration point of view, these are the 3 supported databases and the privileges that are required on the database schema level for configuring DAA service. For Oracle, the schema where you are configuring the catalog service, you would need to provide the grant access. You would need to grant connect resource, create view, create materialized view, and unlimited table space to the DAA schema. For SQL Server, you would need to provide create table, create view, select, alter, insert, delete, update on the DBO to the schema on DBO. For PostgreSQL, there is no explicit privileges that are required. A point to note is that for SQL Server, by default you would have to use DBO, and for PostgreSQL, by default you would have to use the public schema. So this is by design in the current version of services. From the command line point of view, for the command reference command line infacmd currently with related to DAA, we have create service, list service, and update service options available. Moving on to the next slide. From the catalog service privileges point of view, there are three privileges that are added to the existing catalog service privileges, which are related to data asset analytics. The privileges are report management, where a user will be able to view and download the reports on data from the data asset analytics. The user that will able to access the chart dashboards will be able to download the raw data and chart data from the dashboard, will have access to the monitoring tab, uh, but will not have access to application configuration or value configuration page. The next privilege would be for a dashboard management, where the user will have access to the chart dashboard but will not have access to the report management page. So basically there are two kind of users. One who would be managing the report side of DA, the other would be managing the dashboard, the dashboard side of DA. The third privilege set is the admin management, where the admin can provide all the can actually perform all the actions in DA. Moving on to the next slide. Under specifically on DA application, there are basically two settings. One is the application and server settings. Under the application settings, we see an option called View Analytics from. This is a specific date from which you would need the DA application to store its events from. The staging, the reports would be staged in the location that you have provided in this particular place. The default location is InfaHome, InfaShared reports. You can also see an option for data value, where you specify the minimum and maximum value in the value calculator field. The default for the same runs from 0 to 100. The one more option under application settings would be the degree of collaboration, where you configure the following options, where you specify the minimum and maximum values you want to categorize as the specific range for the collaboration activities. Moving on to the next slide. Under server settings, we can primarily make two kinds of settings. One would be the event load settings, which is used to configure the user account synchronization time frequency, which to enable the event purge and specify the time when you want to purge the processed event data from the staging location. The second would be the cache settings, where you want to specify the cache limit that you want DAA to store, and specify the interval when you want DAA to remove the cache information. Moving on to the next slide. Moving on to the various analytics charts. So here you can see the user adoption chart for data asset analytics. On top of the chart, you can see the various user adoption key metrics, like user provision, the active user, the user adoption rate, which actually displays the percentage of configured user, the percentage of users configured against the active users, the number of searches, and the average searches, which is the percentage of number of searches per active users. Under the user adoption charts, you can see the various user login, the active user growth, user searches, and top asset view. The top asset viewed. The top asset viewed feature is not yet introduced in 10.4.1. This is something for the future release. you can download the user login charts, and the download would be in CSV format. Moving on to the next slide. Here we can see the data asset inventory tab, which displays the analytical charts and statistics for the resources and assets in the catalog. Under the key metrics, you can see the resources, the various resource types, the number of assets, and the total asset types that is present under the particular catalog. Under the data asset inventory charts, we can see the following charts. One would be for the top 15 resource types, the resource growth, where you can see the number of resources that has been added from the time you have configured DAA. You can hover your mouse pointer to this particular graph, to the bar graph location, where you can count the exact number of resources. The x-axis of the chart represents the time range versus the number of resources. The next data asset inventory chart would be for asset growth, which displays the total number of assets added to the catalog from the time that you have configured data asset analytics. And the last chart would be for asset changes, which displays the total number of assets that has changed for any specific time change. So the below two charts provides you an option where you can validate the asset growth and asset changes. You can basically filter the asset growth and asset growth changes for all the resources or any specific resources. Moving on to the next slide. Data asset enrichments. Data asset enrichments helps you to understand or view the summary of asset enrichments that has happened on on your catalog. You can view the summary of asset enrichments, which primarily include the business terms, the business terms, and the data domain association with your technical data asset. And you can also understand how much of a lineage has been created or created in your catalog data. So under the key metrics tab, you can see the business terms, the data assets with the percentage of data asset with business term. So which would basically be your data asset, the number of business term per 100 data assets, the data domains and data assets with data domains, and percentage of data assets with lineage and impact. Under the enrichment charts, you can see the charts, the assets with enrichments, and where you can filter based on the enrichment types and the asset group types. The next chart you see is for associated business terms, where the y-axis of the chart represents the number of business terms, and the x-axis represents the time range. And the next chart that you see is for number of assets with lineage impact against the time range. Moving on to the next slide. The next dashboard is for user collaboration, where we use the user collaboration tab to view the summary of the collaboration activities that user perform in your data catalog. These collaboration activities actually include questions, answers, reviews that user provided on the catalog. The key metrics here would be the assets with collaboration and the users that are collaborating on the same, with the number of questions and responses on the data assets. Under the collaboration charts, we can see the collaboration activity against the time range, and you can see the degree of collaboration across resources, where you see the total percentage of resources versus the degree of collaboration. We can also see a chart with the top collaborators, and with the color coding we can verify what kind of a collaboration the top users have performed on the data catalog. And we can also see a chart with top assets. We can also see a chart of top assets with the collaboration. Moving on to the next slide. Uh, so by using the data value, we assign the value to the assets in the catalog and analyze the catalog based on the value. The value here is assigned to resources, resource types, asset enrichments, and collaboration. I will show you how can you assign the data value to a corresponding asset or a asset type in my upcoming slides or demos. Uh, Under the data value key metrics, we specifically see the total value in the catalog, which is a sum of resource value, the asset enrichment value, and collaboration value. The plus point here is the user himself specifies a specific value for a resource or a asset or a resource type or an asset type, and for the enrichments on top of it, along with the collaboration. Under the charts, we see a chart for under the data value charts. We see the charts for resource value against with the various against the various time range, the asset enrichment values, the collaboration values. There is a feature. There is an option of feature usage values that would actually be coming. That would be introduced in the future version of services. Moving on to the next slide with reporting. So data asset analytics helps you to basically create reports with these options. These are the 11 predefined reports that a user can create in data asset analytics. The reports are basically created with on asset counts, asset enrichment, asset lineage links, asset lineage and impact, business term association, data domain association, resource scan history, user and groups, user collaboration, user login, and user searches. I will just explain, give a quick demo on how to create a reports in the upcoming slides. For a user with report management will be able to see the reports, basically create the report under the analytics reports tab, and run the report. So once the reports are created, you can also monitor the same, and you can download the report, and this downloaded report, which will be in your CSV format, can be further used in the upcoming BI tools. Now let me go on for a quick demo on the services. There is, as I had mentioned earlier, there is no separate web UI for data asset analytics. We would be logging into the same LDM catalog tab and logging into the analytics tab. So here we can see the dashboard tab. We can see the dashboards and the various components under dashboards, which would be user adoption, data asset inventory, data asset enrichments, user collaborations, and data value. We can also provide a time range from which we need these values from, but the default would be from beginning. But you can also provide a time range with which you want these dashboards to be run. One topic which I had mentioned that I would be updating you earlier would be how to provide a value for any of the assets. You can hover to this icon, click on the same. Here you can select the resource or resource types, and then out of the limit that we had provided on the application configuration page, we can provide a value for any of the resource or resource types. Based on the value that has been provided, the data value of the catalog service would change. We just noticed a quick dip in the value, the total data value of the catalog when I made the changes under the value calculator. Moving on to the reports, moving on to the reports tab. You can click on new report option, where you can basically create. You can select the report, the type of report that you want to create. I'll select the asset count report. Click on create. Uh, Here you can provide any text, and you can provide an option that is scanned after July 1st. You can add the asset and resource type. And then you can save and run the report. Once the report is created and run, you can go to the monitoring tab, and we can see the status of report. Once the report is run, we can download the same from this tab. So if I click on the older report on user login, we can also observe a report preview here on this particular screen. After a quick demo, moving on to the next slide. So these are the various FAQs that I have compiled for data asset analytics. So the major questions or FAQs or the troubleshooting guidelines and the major questions that we get during our implementation cycles are where to look for the DAA log file. The log file for DAA would be available under InfaHome, logs, node name, services, catalog service name, DAA.log. For the reports that we are generating, that we generate under the reporting tab, the log file for that particular report generate run would be found under the monitoring tab of under the web UI. How do I enable debugging on data asset analytics? You would need to update the log level under the log4j properties file under InfaHome services catalog service, DA webinf classes, and log4j.properties file. What are the supported databases for DAA? The supported databases are Oracle, SQL Server, and PostgreSQL. You can refer under the installation guide for EDC. You can refer Data Asset Analytics database requirement section or the PAM to find out the exact database version details. What are the database privileges that are required for repository configuration? This has been discussed in my earlier slides, but you can refer the installation configuration guide, and you can check for the explicit details under the section Data Asset Analytics Database Requirements. So one more question that we get for customers who don't have any use case with analytics on their metadata, is DA an optional during the upgrade process? Yes, DA is an optional feature during the upgrade process, or also for someone who is configuring a new catalog service on 10.4.1. It's not a mandatory option, but even in scenarios where you have catalog service configured with DAA, there is no performance degradation on the catalog service which has been observed due to data asset analytics. The next question that we get is what are the application level privileges that are available for DAA? Currently on the catalog service, you have three levels of application privileges: report management, dashboard management, and admin management. Based on the use case, based on the privileges that are required for the user, you can log in into the admin console security tab and provide the appropriate privileges for the end user. If What could be the primary reasons when we get an error or when we click on the analytics tab? The primary errors could be DA being not configured from the admin console. After the configuration, if the administrator has disabled DA from the admin console, there is an issue with the database configuration, like from the database end. Maybe because if the database is not down, the database is not available over the network, the database configuration may not be valid due to some changes in the database configuration. There could be a content creation issues. Please note that in any of the scenarios, if from the database end where the DA is configured, if the DA service goes down, there will not be any issues with accessing the catalog service. The catalog service where you load the resources and view the catalog under the discovery tab, it will run without any issues. Just the DA component will not work. The next question is how does a user verify if the DA schema configuration is complete or all the required metadata is being deployed on the database and the content creation is successful? So for this, a user can actually connect to the database from any of the SQL clients, and he can just query for a table called DAA underscore schema version, and he can find out for a row with the schema version and the release version details. This is a quick test you can follow to confirm that the content creation for DAA is complete. Moving on to the next slide. One more, the couple of important questions we get is around cache configuration for DAA. The first question that we usually get is, can we reduce the cache of DAA to 0? No, the answer is no. You cannot set the cache of DAA to 0. Ideally, in ideal scenario, if there is no load on the system, there is basically very less activity on the catalog end, then ideally you can set it up, but it's not required. When does a user actually increase the cache size? For the DA server, the cache size increase is only required for performance improvement. So in case if the DA server response time is very slow, then we might recommend you to increase the cache size. The next question is, what happens if I update cache settings in the configuration page? In case if you update the cache settings on the configuration page, the new cache size and the interval will be validated first. And once they are valid, the entire cache should be invalidated and it would restart with the new settings. One more scenario that we encountered, that we saw during our implementation was, what happens if if the DA is enabled for some period of time, then we disable it for a week or so, and then we enable it once again. What about the user collaboration or the asset enrichments data that has happened during the 1 week of time when the DA service was disabled? In these scenarios, the user collaboration, asset enrichments, all the data related to the 1 week of time when the DA was down will not be available after the DA is enabled once again. In this scenario, the user has to manually trigger a reindex of catalog service so that the contents are created once again in the DA. The next question is how can one interpret the user creation data in DA? The user creation data in DA by design is the data when which the user has been synced up into the DEA service, and this is by design. One more issue is that someone has created some data in the catalog a few minutes back, but it is not getting reflected in the DA dashboard. So this issue is primarily seen when, because of the cache interval that is defined for DA, the user just need to wait for a period of the cache interval by default is 30 minutes. The user has to wait until that cache interval gets expired, and then he would be able to see any refreshes that has occurred on the DA end. This is all from my end from the presentation side. Thanks for your patience over the session. So let us begin. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Please post your questions in the Q&A box and we will try and answer them. Srini, looks like we have 2 questions in the Q&A box. Can we answer them?
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Hi. Hi everyone. Thanks for your time for being on the session. So we have been answering the questions on the Q&A box individually. So the major questions here are related to: is there additional license that is required for DAA? No, there is no additional license required. Can DA capture reports based on axon facets? DA would actually capture would run the reports on all the assets that are loaded into in EDC, be it axon or any data source alike. Does DA have any dependency on MRS or DIS or any other services on the admin console? No. Basically, DA is a parallel service which runs along with catalog or an add-on service on top of data catalog service. Data catalog service runs on MRS and DIS. So in a way, yes, but DA doesn't need an additional DIS or MRS from the configuration end. We are new to EDC. Is there an additional cost for the EDC product? So I see that there are many queries related to EDC implementation. Thanks for your interest on the product. Maybe you can raise a topic on the network site, and somebody from Informatica customer support or CST team, we would connect to you on how to begin with EDC. Can we use data assets can also be used with Informatica IDQ for reporting or dashboard? No, actually the data asset analytics the reports or the dashboards can be downloaded and as a CSV file, and then we can use them further in any of your reporting tools like Tableau or BI. So the inputs to the reporting tools would be the CSV file that we export from data asset analytics. I'm not sure how the IDQ components come into picture here. Maybe I would recommend Santosh to raise a topic or discussion on the network ticket so that we can investigate internally on this and maybe come up with some follow-up queries and discuss further, and we will try to respond. We will answer this for you. DA uses the CPU resource of which server? DA uses the CPU resource of the server where the catalog service is configured. You can log into your admin console and verify on which node we have configured the data on the catalog service, and the on the same server, all the CPU or the memory would be used. Does DA work with REST APIs? Ashish, no. Right now, internally, DA, the application connects to the database on REST API, but those are all internal APIs which are not exposed. In the future version of services, we would be exposing the APIs for data asset analytics. This would also help you to maybe down the lane schedule the report, schedule the running or schedule the reports or run the reports using APIs. Can end users enable drill to data level from the asset? Into data level. Yes, you can. When you run the reports, you have an option to run the report on resources or resource type or asset type. That is the amount of drilling that we can provide. I see a question from Ashish on EDC compatibility. Does EDC support any other cluster other than Hortonworks embedded? Right now, for the embedded cluster that we provide with EDC, it's only Hortonworks. If a customer is using his own cluster Hadoop services, there are a couple of options. What is the default cache size and how many transaction records is that size expected to hold? Michael, right now I don't have these details. I would request you to raise a question on the network side. We would work on this and we would get back to you. Do we need more memory to install and configure this new service? Yes, we would need further a bit more RAM and memory, which the DA would use. The details would be mentioned in the installation and configuration guide. Can you configure, there's one question from Patricia. Can you configure the filter option of the dashboard? No. There are some pre-built filter options. Okay, no. There are a pre-built filter options on the dashboard which you could use. Currently, there is no option to further drill down on the particular dashboards. You can actually get the CSV output you can get the CSV output by downloading the CSV file or the dashboard result and then use it further in any BI tools. What version of PC is EDC compatible with? This is a question from the EDC end. So EDC is a dedicated service. DA is compatible with 10.4.1 version of EDC. So one more question by Sandesh was, I'm a user of Metadata Manager. How does one start using EDC? Sandesh, you can create a discussion on the network site. Metadata Manager and EDC have separate use cases. We can have a conversation with you and then we can decide on which service would be apt for addressing your use cases.
There is one question from Ashish. Can we answer that?
Hi Ashish. The question is it possible to add custom report types? No. Currently, there is no option to add any custom report types. EDC provides you 11 pre-built report types. You can only modify the parameters to the corresponding report types like the date or resource type if it is something to do with the assets, and or if it's something to do with the user collaboration, you can just modify the user management configurations like security domains.
Thank you. Looks like we have answered most of the questions. Hopefully, we have answered all of it. But if we have failed to answer any of your questions, we'll get back to you after this presentation. Hope everyone is safe. Thanks for joining this webinar. And thanks again, Srinivas, for spending some time for this. See you on our next Tech Tuesdays. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.